thing that's really striking to us is that Chinese community is one of the fastest growing population in the country, but we know so little about their needs, about their aging processes, especially a lot of that expectation is very much intertwined with what we call filial piety. It's really this understanding of when someone ages, as we say in Chinese, raising children is to prevent old age and frailty. So when you grow old...
And so filial piety is just really, it's the Confucian, you want to explain
Correct.
that?
So that is the Confucius ideal that really dictates each child's obligatory responsibility to take care of their parents when they grow old. However, there is a reciprocation. So parents are also expected to provide overall guidance and wisdom to the family member.
And so if they don't give you wisdom, you don't have to take care of them?
So, so that's one way to look at it.
Okay.
But the other, I think the underlining idea is really it's a reciprocation. So when you're growing up, your parents are supposed to give you unconditional love. But at the same time, the children will also reciprocate in the way that the piety, the filial care is not only practical support, it's not only material support, but a lot of those dimensions also come into in terms of the emotional support. So that's really the relationship, that the expectation that's binding all the families together.
So again, you know, the Hispanic community, my parents were born and only immigrated to Cleveland, Ohio in the late 1950s. The Irish community, there's all kinds of different expectations. But on the Chinese, have an extra layer too. In China, you're probably familiar with that law that was recently passed that said, there's a law that says that kids are supposed to visit their older parents. Could you talk about that? And that there's, I mean, this is kind of goes to this extra
Correct.
feeling that you're really supposed to take care of your older parents.
Correct. So, well, this actually doesn't come into too much of a surprise for people coming from Chinese culture, because the idea of filial piety has been deep-rooted in the culture for the past thousands of years. So actually, the backbone of that filial piety contract, if you will, actually started back in the 80s, which is a voluntary contract for both parents and children in the rural communities in China to voluntarily sign that the children will take care of their parents when they grow old. And over the past...
So they literally signed a piece of paper?
Correct. So in the past 20 years, over 13 million Chinese rural families signed into this voluntary contract. But then it evolved into this, what we call the Chinese Elderly Protection Law, which came into effect in July this year. So one of the article really dictates that the children have to visit their parents who live far away on a regular visit, or send them regards from time to time. However, it's still somehow unclear to us how the law will be reinforced in terms of how the children will be penalized or punished.
So the parents can sue the kid, but it's unclear
Correct.
what happens to the kid.
Correct.
But I mean, the whole point of this is to say there's a lot of immigrant communities, and they're very different. And there's different expectations and different guilt. Now, in this case in Chicago, many of the older people do not speak English. Is that right?
Yes. So the immigrant community that we serve, there's definitely a high expectation still lingering for filial piety that the children will be taking care of them. However, the discrepancy between this expectation versus what they actually received, this type of disconnect really results in a lot of family conflicts, disagreement, and also in terms of the really expose older adults to vulnerability and to elder abuse issues. So for instance, based on our findings, every 1 in 2 Chinese older adult has some sort of difficulty in performing their daily activity to maintain their individual living in the community. We know over half of Chinese older adults who experience some sort of depressive symptoms. That's very much intertwined to the lack of needs that they're being met in terms of their own physical and emotional distress. And they also experience high level of suicidal behavior. That's actually, we suspect that's very much relating to the unmet needs of some of the caregiving.
And the isolation.